Northern Command or the Southern Command? I just forgot. Maybe you did both. How long did it take you to go to join the wars of the Jewish people against the Canaanites?
Less than a year.
7 years, as we learned in the book of Yeshua. It took 7 years to drive out how many kings of the Canaanites? 31. 31 kings, 31 like tribal existences, as we learn in the book of Joshua, book number 1 after the first 5 books. And then, were you sitting, was it so easy after the first 7 years? It took another 7 years to divide, allocate the land of Israel amongst how many tribes? 12 tribes. That's stated in the book of Joshua. 9.5 tribes. Mr. Misayo came from New Delhi, is telling us it's really, technically speaking, 9.5 tribes. Don't think he's that smart, but he studied Yeshua and he studied the Chumash, and he's getting smarter. And it took Am Yisrael 14 years to go to war and allocate the land. God says, this upcoming, through Moshe Rabbeinu, this upcoming new mitzvah that we've not learned about in other books, commonly called, not here, but elsewhere. It's actually, the name is called elsewhere, is called Bikurim. Bikurim. We're going to get to it in a moment. The mitzvah will only start after you're no longer busy conquering the land and dividing the land. That's what Rashi explains. Where did Rashi get it? Because it's a Talmudic statement that was written 1,000 years before Rashi's time. So therefore, the upcoming mitzvah that we're about to learn will only be applicable to this generation after they go into the land, conquer it, and apportion the land amongst the tribes. The nation has to be settled. Why? We'll read a little more and understand more facets or elements about this commandment, which many of us are still in the blur. Ranan, do you have time to restrain yourself, or you must?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, you must say your question.
Say that is the place that Hashem will point to you, right?
Go ahead.
To bring the basket.
No. You're early. You're preempting. Let's get to read it. We didn't read it yet.
No. It's part of the what they explain. So it's depends also in Bet Mikdash.
Yes, we're going to read it. We're going to read it. We're going to read it and see it exactly. Okay, any preliminary questions on the opening pasuk? Let's go. Pasuk bet. V'lakachta, and you're going to take Mereshit kol peri ha'adama asher tavi me'artzecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach v'samta vatena v'alachta lamakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha l'shaken shemo Sham. Reshit. Rosh Hashanah. Reshit. Rosh. We're learning about a unique mitzvah about taking the first of Kol Peri Ha'adama. Remember, we're handicapped. We really don't understand the psukim because we have to consult. Can you please dial up the oral Torah? What does the oral Torah say? What is Kol Peri Ha'adama?
The 7 spirits of Israel.
Okay. How do we know? In other words, we're not talking about carrots, potatoes, and plums. Rather, we're talking about the 7 fruits of the land of Israel. That's not written vividly here in the pasuk, but it's learned through an oral Torah rule. Okay, gentlemen? When we received the Torah, there was a kit. We received tools. Just like you may have a wrench, hammer, screwdriver, and other tools. We received Yud Gimel Midot HaTorah Nidreshet Bahem. We received 13 tools that help us decipher what's written in the written Torah. Some of the tools we were told when to use. Some of the things we were told the conclusions, or some of the things we were told exactly. I don't know what was told exactly when. But there is a tool called Gzera Shava. One of the 13 tools God issued to Moshe Rabbeinu at Sinai was a tool called Gzera Shava. Literal translation, an equal decree and an equal word, a common word. What does it mean? When there are one word written in 2 distinctive places in the written Torah, and Moshe during these 40 years toward his disciple. Who is his main disciple? And who are the other great disciples? Aaron, 70 elders, and the rest of the people. For 40 years, the Jewish people were learning orally the oral Torah. So there's a common word called Eretz, written here, Artzecha. And there's a word Eretz written earlier regarding the 7 fruits of the land of Israel. David Shimon, you think you know the 7 fruits of the land of Israel by heart? He's a very honest person, a very humble person. Okay, who should I pick on? Who should I pick on? Comment? No, not yet. You're only here a short time. You wouldn't know the 7 fruits. Okay, Mr. My friend from the Czech Republic. Amos, let's hear the 7 fruits of the land of Israel. Uh-oh.
Grape? No,
Fig.
Tena.
Ken. By the way, has a beautiful garden. I don't know how many fruits of the land of Israel you have in your lovely garden. Okay, look, you already contribute, Tamar, you contributed. What I'm also looking for is to make life harder on some of you. And I want to know the 7 fruits according to its order as it appears in which book? No. Devarim, chapter 8, verse 8. So, what do you think? Now I know that. Now that if I did you when you had to do what is it called, nivutim in the army, you had to study the map by heart in advance. So you're very good in that. How do I know? Because when you try to show me where to go to the synagogue in the city of Akko, it was easy for you, but I got lost. So you have a good memory of studying maps. Okay, so in the book of Devarim, chapter 8, verse 8, remember this for the rest of your life. Don't be impressed. It's easy to remember. 8:8. The Torah says, Eretz, help me out. Chita, Useora, Vegefen, Uteina. You're reading. Uteina, next. Verimon, not cheating, it's okay. Eretz Zeit Shemen Udvash. Okay? Remember, God willing, when everyone establishes a family and you send your son or daughter to kindergarten number 3 years old, they're going to teach them how to sing the song, Eretz Chita. You learned from your parents in Las Vegas? No? They didn't teach you this as a kindergarten kid? Chaval. I thought you had the Israeli side of your life already got at the age of 3. So our kids all know this pasuk. What? Just the looks. So in any event, gentlemen, you're going to learn when your kids are going to be sent to kindergarten when you start with age 3. Eretz Chita, Useora, Vegefen, Uteina, Verimon. Eretz Zeit Shemen, Udvash. Dvash literally means, but in the Torah, Dvash means the sweetness of fruits. And in this particular time, what does it refer to? Temarim. Temarim, which are dates. These are the 7 fruits of the land of Israel.
Also the wheat.
Wheat.
Wheat also is the food.
It's right. So, in your culture and the culture where I came from, we always thought the word fruit refers to
Apples and
a fruit of a tree.
Yes.
But in the culture of the Jewish people, in our Torah, a fruit is defined as anything that grows from the ground. Okay? So, that's the understanding that the Michalari just got right now, that the first 2 are chita and seora, wheat and barley. Now let's get back to our subject. The Torah is saying, Velakachta, you, the farmer, you're going to take Meireshit, we'll explain that in a moment. Kol pri adama shetavi mi'artzecha. What is kol pri adama? Is defined by the oral Torah, the first ripening fruits of the land of Israel. In another place in the Torah called Bikurim. Bikurim. David, what is the root of the word Bikurim?
What, me? There are many Davids here, I don't know.
Really? Who else is David here? I'm sorry, there are another 2. Well, I'm looking at it. What do you want from me?
First.
What is the root of the word? The shoresh.
Bet, Kaf, Resh.
Very good. Bet, Kaf, Resh. Okay? Bet, Kaf, Resh. Bet, Kaf, Resh. Bechor. This, no, Livakir is with a kuf, to visit. Okay? We already saw last week who is defined or earmarked to get a double portion of an inheritance. He's called the, and he is the first one to open the womb of the mother, as we learned. It was last week, right? Bechor. Gentlemen, everything that's first is unique in the world. In our physical, earthly world, and especially in our cultural, spiritual world. The first time we meet up with the term Bechor is the great meeting of prophecy between God and Moshe, when Moshe is tending to his father-in-law's sheep, and he's in the area called Mount Chorev, listed there, Chorev, which is another name for Sinai. And there, the first revelation of God to Moshe, where God says, I want you to be the leader and take my people out of Egypt. And there, Moshe Rabbeinu, who grew up in Egypt, remember he grew up in Egypt? In the house of Bat Paro goes out and tends to, he's interested in finding out about his own people. And when he sees that they are afflicted and they're going through such hard times, he takes it to heart and tries to represent or stand up for them. And we see that he's a very noble soul, that he cares for others so much, for his own brothers. He's in the making to become the greatest leader that we had, to bring down the Torah, like we said, from heaven through a great Sinai revelation. And now he's told who he represents. God says to Moshe, and I'm quoting, I think in the book of Exodus Shemot, chapter 6, I think it is, quote, B'ni Bechori Yisrael. You are my B'ni, my son. Tov, God has a lot of sons. The Afghanistans are also the sons of God. And the Dutch are also the sons. No. You're Bechori, you're my firstborn. You're my first, you're my most unique. You have special, holy content inside you that you can't see under a microscope. Something which cannot be defined. You are my nation, who is a Bechor, my first entity in the world. From that point on, we see that in the metaphysical system of God, related through his Torah, what is first is unique. And therefore we see many commandments that have to do with a first matter. Who can give me an example of a first?
The first of your cattle.
The first of your cattle that was born this year. There's a tithe. No, the first one born is a sacrifice. Korban Bechor. Another example. Your first son that opened the womb of your wife. He's a Bechor. Anyone here a Bechor? Really? Is your father a Cohen? Would he like to become a Cohen? I was waiting for your response. You're also a Bechor, Liron? That's right. And you're also a Cohen? Oh, wow, I didn't know. I know you're bringing such distinguished people here. He may be over us. Binyamin, he's also a Bechor and also to a Cohen family. Wow. Can I have your autograph after? Sure. Thank you. In any event, so what happened to David Shimel? You're also a Bechor?
No, I had a question.
So a Bechor, we learned in the book of Shemot, right, coming out of the Exodus of Egypt, whoever is a Bechor is so holy, so special, so unique. He needs even to be redeemed, to take out of that holiness. Except if you are a Cohen, like Liron. Okay? We merited two of our 5 married children that had their first children, that we had a Bechor. So we went to 2 ceremonies on day number 30 called a Pidyon Bechor, redeeming, transferring the holiness out of the Bechor and giving it and bringing it elsewhere, called a Pidyon Bechor. But someone who belongs to the tribe of Levi, which is forked out to Kohanim and to Leviim, they're so holy, they retain their holiness as a Bechor. There's no need to do a redemption. So we saw mitzvah Pidyon Bechor. Any other mitzvah that comes to your mind that's a first, that's related to Bechor? Any other commandment that you remind yourself? the first fruits, the first of our fruits, we're going to be tithing it. And to give it, we have a tax system, a welfare system to support certain institutions like the kahuna, the priesthood, and the leviyah. So the first of my fruits, but no, I'm sorry, it's not really a first. I can take any of the harvested products, so it's not exactly a first. Any other idea come to your mind? The Omer. Ah, very nice. Who said that? Who? You? Omer. What is the Omer? Can you explain to us?
Omer is
The word Omer, spell it. Spell it, Mr. Renan. In Brazil, there's no ayin letter. Ayin. Oh, ayin, mem, resh. The Omer is really a measure. Thank you. Is a measure of a dry matter. Could be wheat or barley. And it would be the first of the harvest of the barley given to?
It would be barley because wheat comes after the...
You're right. So the first of the harvest of the barley. In Israel, our climates, our seasons are set. It's not like, my son, I don't know, I'm calling out my sister in New York and it's raining in the middle of the summer. Okay? Or all over the world. There's always a balagan in the climate systems often. But in Israel, we have a harvest season starting at the Passover time. So the first of the harvest of the barley is to be given as a public offering. Okay, let's get back to here because we're spreading out too much. Okay, now, so we're taking here the first of the 7 fruits, but it's the bechor, it's the first ripening fruits. What's unique about this commandment is that the commandment is already to be begun to be done while the fruits are still attached to the ground. That's a novelty. We've never seen it, I don't think, ever at all in any agricultural mitzvah. All the agricultural commandments we have are related to after the harvest, or at the harvest or after. Here, you're looking one of your 7 fruits. You're taking a hike in any of the 7 fruits, and you see that it's beginning to ripe. You tie a ribbon around the first fruit, and you say, "Hare ze Bikurim." Repeat those 3 words. Now, when you pick it a month, 2 months later, 3 months later, that's what you collect, and you're going to bring it to. You're going to put it in a teneh. What's a teneh? A basket. The truth is, you may delay to bring the first. If you're a farmer, you have different types of fruits. You're going to wait until you harvest all of your first fruits, and you're going to put it in a basket. Where are you going to take it to? Valachta el hamakom. Hamakom is sign language for
Place.
the place, which is the capital T-H-E. Hamakom asher yivchar. We've seen this style of words. Hamakom asher yivchar, the place that you will choose. The shakein shemo sham, to dwell his name there. This afternoon, yours truly is giving the opening shiur to the new book we're about to learn, Sefer Shmuel. And we're going to treat the idea of the Shekhinah, the divine presence. Okay, where is the divine presence? If you're living in San Francisco, you're going to this Chabad synagogue, they might sing you a song. God is here, and God is there, and God is everywhere. Not talking about the next part, what they want now. But, so if God's presence is everywhere, so why you're saying his presence is there? Answer, that's the highest level of God's presence. Commonly called, after the word l'shakein, Shekhinah. Repeat it. Shekhinah. So this is a code phrase, Hamakom asher yivchar Hashem Elokecha, to the place that God designated, which is, was, and will be the Temple Mount in Yerushalayim. Okay, your question, David, you had a question?
Yeah.
No, the David sitting in front of you. Then the David sitting in back of you. Or the Thomas sitting in front of you. Go ahead, David.
Really, there's this, separate holy status of the firstborn, but then so many of the protagonists are models in the Tanakh are not firstborn, like Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yosef, David.
Therefore.
I just wonder about that. think about that?
Okay, I'll interview myself. Thank you. Not everyone that is firstborn has to have the most unique position in the society of the Jewish people. There's no correlation between the two. But we said there's special holiness that he has because he's the one that opened the womb of the mother. And that's related to the Jewish people who represent the first entity of a nation of God on the planet of Earth. What's first is unique. What's first is special. What first could retain holiness. But it doesn't mean that the leaders of Israel must be a Bechor. That's not a prerequisite to answer your question. It's not a prerequisite to become a leader.
Shown with the story of David HaMelech, right?
What about him? He was the last kid, right? When Shmuel's going out, that's right. Thomas?
So in the case that there is even the Ula, are we allowed from the Mitzvah to Semidoraita to push away the Mitzvah to Semidoraita? So the Bikurim.
Good question. Thomas is asking, when we plant saplings, and as we learned from the commandment in the book of Vayikra, chapter 19, Shalosh Shanim Yu Arilim Lechem. There's a 3-year prohibition of getting enjoyment or benefit from the fruit of a sapling tree. So the answer is no, we cannot, because we cannot take from those young trees and bring it as the mitzvah of Bikurim, as we're about to learn, to the Holy Temple, but it's a gift. We're about to learn to whom is this gift, but Mr. Amos wanted to say something.
In the 4th year we can do that, is it?
That's correct. In the 4th year of the sapling we can, but the 3 years no. Renan, what's the problem? Now you're going to ask your question that I delayed you. Yeah.
Shiloh, it's also considered the place.
Wow, what a beautiful question. You're so chaval that you have to take care of your baby in the afternoon. You can be with we're going to be dealing with this matter as well today in our shiur. So yes, Shiloh would be the place as well for this. That's correct.
Were there multiple places?
Are there multiple places?
Yeah, because the Ark was at many places before.
Beautiful question. That'll be related to by the shiur today at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Can you hold your horses? I mean your patience? What do you want to say? 1 second. One moment. Give Michael Arya quick.
So the firstborn is the one who first opened the womb
Of the mother, not the son of the father.
But what if you got blessed with a beautiful daughter? Is she then also the firstborn then?
She's the firstborn physically, but not for the laws of the firstborn. That's what God decided. Bini, my son, Bechori Yisrael. With all due respect to women, Mr. Binyamin.
You said God is everywhere, but has a place of designation or his highest level of existence, which is the Temple Mount. Is that representative of anything? What does this symbolize? Like within ourselves, a state of consciousness?
Right. In our state of consciousness, we know that just like the human body has different abilities, but the soul of the inside, the nation of Israel, is the most unique, distinct, holiest element of his body, and therefore we should cooperate with the laws of hygiene and protect our body, preserve our body, benefit our body, because it is an important vessel, commonly called a kli, a vessel to maintain this holy soul. There's so much holiness, and because of that soul, the holiness spreads even to the body, and therefore we have to treat ourselves properly. So that's the beginning of an answer to your wonderful question. Sign him up. Next, let's go back to the text. Very good question. Pasuk Gimel, and now we're going to know what are we going to do with this 7 ripened fruits. Who can pronounce the first word properly in Pasuk Gimel? Quickly. Not uvata. Uvata. Why am I properly pronouncing it uvata, Thomas? I have a problem hearing. What? I thought you said uvata. You're right. So David said properly. Read it again. Uvata. Why is the end of the word emphasized? Because it has the cantillation sign above the last letter. You see that, Rob? On top of the last letter of this verb, uvata. I want to teach you something about this great language, the divine language given to the Jewish people. Depending upon the position of this cantillation sign. Did you get learn this for your bar mitzvah? There you go. So please correct me if I make a mistake.
I don't know.
Okay. In any event, depending upon the position of the cantillation sign will be the emphasis or accentuation of the word. And you know what? Ask me what? What do you care? No, the answer is you should care, and that the word will be pronounced differently, and it may mean otherwise. For instance, bata elai, you came to me. But if I say in biblical Hebrew, uvata, it's in the future. The vav at the beginning of the verb turns this past verb into the future. It's called vav ha'ipuch. Repeat that term. Vav ha'ipuch. It's the turning over vav. So uvata ela Cohen. The commandment is you shall come to the Cohen. Which Cohen? I'm reading in verse 3. Asher yeh bayamim haim. I don't understand. What question are you going to raise immediately? Asher yeh bayamim haim. What, we've seen this once before. What question should you raise? Asher yeh. You're going to go to the Cohen that will be in your days. In those days. What question can you raise?
The Cohen is already there.
Maybe. No.
It's written for empathize that.
No, I want to hear a question, not the answer. I caught you, Thomas. Asher yeh bayamim. You're going to come to the Cohen in those days, the days that you're living in. So what question should be obviously raised?
When are those days?
Where?
Why it's written in state?
It's obvious you're going to go to the Cohen that's in those days. Who are you going to go to the cemetery and dig him up? We heard we did this once before. I forgot. I think it's a legitimate question. The text shouldn't have. We don't understand. Why did the text write Uvatela Cohen Asher Yeb? Of course, you're going to go to the Cohen that's in those days.
Why need to mention?
So why bother mentioning it? Question. Obvious good question. Let's read the second part of the pasuk and we'll get thereafter to the answer. Va'amarta elav, and you're going to say to him, Higadati hayom lashem elokacha. It's a difficult verb. Higadati. No, it doesn't. It's not necessarily lehagid, or maybe it will be lehagid. What is lehagid as opposed to lemor? Lehagid, the verb lehagid.
Wants to say.
No, it's not to say. It's not to listen. To tell what? Lahagid sipur. Lahagid is to tell a story. You're right, something. That's the verb lahagid. Another meaning, it could mean lehodot. Hodeti, I am thanking. Higadeti hayom. You the farmer, coming up to the Cohen in those days, you're going to say, I'm going to tell you something today, L'Hashem Elokecha, which is related to God your Lord. What? Kivati el haaretz asher nishba Adonai lavotenu latet lanu. You're coming with the basket with the 7 fruits, or 1 or 2 of the fruits, and you're coming up to the Cohen to which city we said?
Yerushalayim.
And where in Yerushalayim we said?
Beit HaMikdash.
The Beit HaMikdash area. How do you really know it's a Beit? Maybe it's just a Temple Mount without the Beit HaMikdash. Look further afterwards. What's written in verse 4 to tell me that really this commandment is dependent upon the existence of a temple. What exists in Pasuk 4?
Mizbeach.
Beautiful, excellent. Mizbeach. You got a what on the shoulder? A pat on the back. So you get a pat on the shoulder, on the back. Michal Ari says it's clear from that verse in Pasuk Daled that it's dependent upon the existence of a Mizbeach, an altar, one of the major vessels inside a holy temple. So yes, not only is this commandment dependent upon the land of Israel, not only is this mitzvah dependent upon the agricultural mitzvah, not only is this commandment dependent upon Yerushalayim, but it's dependent upon the existence of what will exist inside it? A Mizbeach. Now let's get back to the question about the Cohen in your days, and you're going to come and say, Kivati el haaretz. One of the most important educational points of this commandment is the following. Aleph, to give respect to the institution called the priesthood, and Bet, about your arriving to the land of Israel. Let's treat the first one first and the second one second. It might take to the end of today's class in the next 12, 13 minutes. Number 1. He got it. What are the words? You may have thought that the Cohen looks so holy and so special with his white beard. I don't know, with his earlocks, and He looks so well learned and versed. You get to the Beit HaMikdash, and you see the Cohen with these Texas boots on, really cool looking boots, and has these, these 500 shekel sunglasses like, Hell's Angels use when they drive their motorcycles in downtown LA or something like that. And you said, uh-oh, this is not the Cohen I'm going to. You want to make a U-turn, right? He's not a kosher Cohen. Come on, give me a break. And you're turning around, and there's David Shemel. He says, I learned in Machon Meir. I know what the Rambam says on these laws of these agricultural mitzvot. You have to come and give it to whoever Cohen is there. Because it's not the Cohen that makes him special. He belongs to his father, his grandfather. It's the priesthood. He's part of an institution. He's part of a system called the Kohanim, the priest, that they were chosen by God to be our men working on the mountain. I'm not talking about Merrill Lynch. Our men working on the mountain are this select group called the Kohanim. Can you pay dues to become a Kohen? No. You have to be born into a father, grandfather, and so on and so forth to become a Kohen. And whether you are well-learned or not, doesn't make a difference. You're going to get reserve duty. You're going to be called up once every how many weeks? How many Mishmarot Kuhuna? 24 groups, right? A very good Mishnah Masechet Tehunat. He's called up once every 24 weeks to work as a group of priests in the Beit HaMikdash. And when it comes one of the 3 holidays, you come up there to work. There's going to be a lot of traffic, a lot of Jews coming up to bring their offerings, their holiday offerings called the Chagigah offerings. So you're going to be there and give respect to the Kuna. And therefore the Torah educates us through the words, Uvata el HaKohen asher yeh bayamim hahem. Whoever's there, give them respect. Bring it to them. Don't think, a Cohen is based upon how much he's learned, how long his beard is, or what. No, it's not dependent upon that whatsoever. It's inherent. It's inside, and we give respect to the Kahuna. Okay? Some of you may know, when we read the Torah during the course of the week in the public synagogue, who do we call up first? The Cohen. He's honored first. If we're eating at a table, we're about to recite the grace after meal, who will he ask to do the ceremony of inviting everyone? The Cohen. We give him honor. Yes, we give him honor. Ken, are you jealous?
No, I have a question.
Okay, what's your question?
What if the Kohen is wicked?
So he may, if he's wicked and he's anti this and that, we're going to say, sit in the bleachers and watch. Right? But if he wants to get closer, then we want to honor him. And maybe there's a reason why he's wicked. He's never been really exposed to the real thing, which is not Coca-Cola, right? He hasn't been exposed to what really the culture of the Jewish people is about. What really is unique and distinct. What do you want to add? What do you want to say, David?
Well, the principle is that we should honor the Kohanim, but it seems based on the language here that the person brings their Bikurim and
Yes.
they say to the Kohen, your God. Like Paro says to Moshe, right?
Very nice question. Very good question. Lashem Elokecha. David is thinking, he's reading the text and he's asking a very good question. Answer. Nachon, that the God is the God of Israel. And it's Nachon that the Kohanim do not have a monopoly over the God of Israel. But those that are closest to the God of Israel are, or can be, the Kohanim, because they are the people on that mountain in the most unique times. And therefore the holiness that is present in a Kohen is not present in a Levi, which is nor present in a regular Yisrael. And therefore, from that point of view, he can be called Elokecha, your God. You're most close to him. And I'm bringing this gift to you. And now let's talk about this system. We have a welfare system of gifts to the Kohanim. Sachakol total, who remembers how many gifts to the Kohanim? 24. Kaf, Dalet gifts. Remember, the Kohanim, according to the law of God, were not distributed a piece of land in Israel in order to make revenues, in order to produce income, like all the other tribes. They have a place to live, but their basic point in life, objective for the Jewish people is education, is working in the Beit HaMikdash, and therefore we have a support system of 24 different gifts to give to a Cohen. Some of them are given to the Beit HaMikdash. Some of them are given to a Cohen anywhere you want to choose across the country, from North Korea. Kohanim you can give. But the point is, this is one gift, supporting the institution, giving respect to the institution. The last point that I want to deal with, that we don't see almost in any other mitzvah, is you. Parts to this mitzvah, there's the giving, and there's making a declaration. As called in the Mishnah, in the tractate called Masechet Bikurim. Where will it appear? In which of the 6 orders?
From the Mishnah.
Who said it? Who's who? You, great, Zraim, excellent. It happens to be the last tractate itself in the Mishnah of Zraim, in the tractate of Zraim, seeds. It's the last in the order called Seeds Zraim. It is the last Masechet. We have about 4 or 5 chapters of laws of the oral Torah written down in the Mishnah. Now, this mitzvah, you're saying Kivati ala Eretz. Vati al Eretz. When you hear the term, I came to the land, what does that mean? What does it mean, I came to the land? You're declaring, I came to the land. When? When?
In the past.
What do you mean in the past?
After
Right now. Kivati, I just... LL 001 arriving from Vienna. LL 002 arriving from LAX airport. LL 003 arriving from what's the international airport in Washington?
Dallas.
In Washington, Dallas?
Dallas.
Dulles. It's a very dull airport. I don't know. Okay, that's where you flew from.
Maybe, I don't know.
So it's okay. We're not going to hold you by the word. Now, I'm looking right now. I'm picking on this guy over here. You see? He's here. His father's been here. He's generations here. And he comes up to the Beit HaMikdash, this farmer over here, and he says, Kivati el Eretz. Liar! You're a liar! You've been here for generations. How can you say that you just Kivati el Eretz? You understand the question we're asking? Yes or no? The front page of the LA Times. Thousands of Israelis baking in the Pacific Ocean beach of Los Angeles. It's one of the headlines about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. What are they doing there? Answer, David. You relate to this more maybe than others because of your family, huh?
There are a lot of Israelis in Los Angeles.
Right. A lot of Israelis have left our homeland. Why? Why?
Money.
Because they think the grass is greener elsewhere, and therefore it's probably better to live elsewhere. What are they lacking in understanding of what the land of Israel is really about? What is this land really about? What's so unique and special? That requires study.
What happens if you can afford to live in Israel?
Okay.
Because it is like way more expensive than living in Vienna.
Okay. Do you see all those new buildings? All those new cars? All the high-tech development here? All the agriculture? We're like number 1 in so many different fields all over the world. I think people are making money here in this. Am I mistaken? Is everyone... One second. Did you go to the bread factory over there? What is it called? How long is the bread line for the poor people? Tell the truth. Yeah, you with the red shirt. Ah, there's no bread line there? Wow. In other words, there's economic possibilities in this country. Did you notice that? How many stars there are in the army, in high tech, in agriculture, in politics, in education, in the academic world. Believe it or not, I had a meeting with him the other day, and I asked him, could you take care of the Jewish people economically? And you know what he told me? You just have to believe and deepen your trust and study of faith, what it means. In the 50s and 60s and 70s, when there was high inflation annually, almost like Central America, where there would be a coup d'etat every year, right? If you've studied a little history, In Israel, we had this high inflation, 100, 200%, right when the currency was not sturdy, when it was not strong. But today, nachon, there are poor people in Israel, but they're also very wealthy people. You see new cars in the road. You know what it costs to pay for a new car in Israel because of taxes? Do you know that people pay 100% tax on a new car? Are you aware of that? Yes or no? Now you're aware. You thought it was okay? And still people are doing okay. A lot of people are doing okay. All across. Why do you think there's building and construction and infrastructure work? Why do you see cranes all over the country, new roads, new tunnels? Because this country is becoming one of the most wealthiest countries in the world. We're en route to that. There's so much tax-paying money. The budget is gigantic. Of course, we need the best tanks and the best fighter planes and the best pilots and training and so on and so forth. But there are a lot of opportunities. I don't even have the statistics. So if you go online, you can find the statistics. So there's a matter of understanding who we are and what this land is about. When the Jewish people come home, bingo. Treasures, talents start developing unlike any time in our 2,000 years of history living in Europe and in other countries all over the world. So here comes this mitzvah called Bikurim, which is two-parted, the actual bringing, Hava'at Bikurim, as the Mishnah says, Lehavi Bikurim. And now we're talking about Mikra. We're at the beginning. Tomorrow we'll complement ourselves. Reading, declaring Bikurim. And you're saying, Bati el Eretz. Why do we want you to say? Why does God want us to say, I've just arrived? Thomas and other students often ask me, how long are you in Israel? And what is my proper answer, Thomas? There you go. I'm an Oleh Chadash. I'm an Oleh Chadash. And that's what I answer. And it's the truth. I'm an Oleh Chadash. It could be that I'm Oleh Chadash 43 years old. But I use the word Chadash. How do you feel, David, when you wear a new shirt?
Good.
Okay. How do you feel when you're wearing your New Balance sneakers for the first time?
Chadash.
Chadash. When you're driving your, give me a British car. When you're driving your first Rolls Royce. Chadash, right? Okay. Everything that's Chadash is unique, special, dynamic. What happens when the Chadash turns old? That's what people lack in understanding. To see the dynamics of living in the land of Israel, the uniqueness, even if you're here 43 years, that when you still travel on Egged bus, you're still curious to see the topography. When you're still hiking on that same route that you went 5 years ago, it's like for the first time new. Ken, everything is new, everything is unique, everything is dynamic. The Torah wants us to survey, to introspect in learning about this land of Israel, how it allows me to reveal my true inner self. Because this land, as Rav Kook writes it, is an opening paragraph in the book called Orot. This land is hugged with inner talents. When you pick up a piece of soil and earth and you see it and look at it, it looks the same thing like in Vienna. It looks like this also in New Delhi. It looks just the same, maybe a little different. But the truth of the matter is this land is hugged with divine talent that when we come back to live here, wow, look what's being exposed, look what's being revealed. We're such a young country, 70, 80 years old, 100 years of settling the land. But look what's going on. There's no country in the world with the rapid development that we're developing here. Don't think everything is rosy. Of course we have problems. Of course we have issues and we have problems. It's a matter of education. Okay? So here the Torah is coming to educate, the bringer, the farmer of Bikurim. I want you to look back and understand what this land of Israel means. As you're giving honor to the Cohen and you're placing it before the Mizbeach. Let's just begin reading to wet our lips and our whims for the next year tomorrow, verse 5. You're going to place it lifnei mizbach Hashem Elokecha. You're going to place it before the altar. Usually, what is placed on an altar?
That's korban.
A korban, a sacrifice, an offering. These fruits are or are not an offering.
They're not the offering.
Because if they would be an offering, they would be placed on the Mizbech. The Torah here says, V'hi nicho, you'll place it, the basket, lifnei. Just in front of it, exactly, before. Very good, Ben. Before Mizbach Hashem Elokecha. So, let's maybe end the shur understanding this. No, it's not an offering. Yes, it's a matana. One of, how many we said? 24 gifts to the Kohanim. And whoever's working on the shift that day that you're arriving, he will get it, or they'll apportion it amongst themselves. In the oral Torah, we will learn that there's a time of Bikurim. 1 second. Is there such a thing called Chag Bikurim? Really? Would you please remind me, what is it?
Are they free?
Yes.
What? Sukkot?
After Pesach.
Who said Shavuot? Raise your hand. You're guilty of the right answer. Very good. Chag Shavuot, another name is Chag Habikurim. Question is why? And the answer is simple. He said so in the oral Torah, that the time of this commandment is from Chag HaShavuot until Chag HaSukkot. Wow. We have several months to do this commandment. And further, we said it's a two-sided mitzvah. Hava'ah, bringing. And number 2, Mikra, Bikurim, Mikra. We're learning what? Mikra. Why is this nickname Mikra? Liron? What does Likro mean? Excellent. The Chumash is nicknamed Mikra, as opposed to the oral Torah nicknamed Mishnah. Mishnah is lishanein, to repeat, to know it by heart. Mikra is something which is read, Mikra, Likro. Okay? So this mitzvah is two-faceted. Aleph, lehavi et habikurim, to bring them. And number 2, which we're about to learn, is to read Mikra Bikurim, which we're going to learn tomorrow partially. But it's placed before the Mizbeach. Almost like a korban. And a korban, an offering, is a novelty in Judaism. Unlike what we think and what we experienced in our Western world, the more that you give, the more you're lacking. The more you give, the more you take out of your pocket, you have less. In Judaism, it's the opposite. The more you give, the more you're blessed. We believe that giving is part of our nature, to be worrying and concerned about the other, our friend, our member of our nation, the poor, the widow, the yatom v'almanot, the divorcee, to think how we can benefit others. And the more we do that, we become idealist. We're going to be likening ourselves to the divine entity. What is the divine entity doing day in and day out?
Watching of us.
Giving. I want to show you something. Look at this. Sit back. This guy has a pair of lungs. Are they working?
Yes.
There it is. His lungs are working because Hashem is allowing him to breathe. And his heart is pumping. All that God is giving all the time. The fact that we got up this morning, thank God, and we're doing our thing, is the blessing of God. So we believe it has to be placed before the altar, similar to a korban, and now we're earmarked for a blessing. For this and more in tomorrow's shiur. Can you hit the red button, please?